Alright, guys, how's it going? This is the first episode of my podcast. Um, I'm gonna name it Interview with a Middle Schooler. And yeah, let's just get into it. So, I'm here with my little cousin who is 12. And, he's not gonna, we don't want to share, personal information. He's not comfortable doing that. So, we're just gonna call him my little cousin. Say hi.
Hi.
Cool. So I just wanted to, bring him on here and just ask him some questions. Just ask him his opinions and his viewpoints on things. And even though he's young, I mean, when I was that age, I had a lot to say and a lot to think. And nobody ever listened to me. Nobody ever asked me my opinions on anything. And I just think it'd be interesting to hear his side of stuff. So that's what we're gonna do today. So let's just get into it.
Okay.
So I'm curious. Me and him actually went to the same middle school, and I'm curious to know, what's going on now, with the whole bullying and, dating and the Pledge of Allegiance and, where kids are at right now versus, when I was at that school and like where I was at mentally, So we can just start on.
I guess we can just start on bullying, I guess.
Okay.
Start things off.
So I guess the question would be, when I was in middle school, bullying wasn't really going on too much. I actually kind of picked on a kid, and I felt really bad about it afterwards. We kind of picked on each other. And, he'd pick on me, I'd pick on him. Sometimes, he'd go a little extra, or I would. And, I felt bad about it later in the future, realizing that, we should have never did that to each other to start with. So, you being in school, what's your take on bullying, and, like, what do you see around you? Do you see bullying happening every day? Do you see kids crying? Do you see just, kids being cruel and calling each other names, about being gay or overweight, or like, what's your take on it?
Well, honestly, I'm just gonna, come out and say it. Bullying to what you expect isn't what it actually is. It's a whole different thing in, reality versus what you think it would be. People think that bullying is, harassment over and over and over again throughout the days, and, you can't get away from it. And there are certain cases like that, but most bullying these days isn't like that. It's more of, as you said, kids are just picking on each other back and forth, and it's more of it doesn't seem to affect you, but it does in a way, and that's more of, how I put it, that's more of a thing between you and your friends. You're not gonna go up to another person and start picking on them or whatever, because it's more of a friend thing, because you guys know each other and you guys make fun of each other for your quirks or whatever, or something like that. And so that's my take on bullying.
So are you saying that you never see anybody being bullied, or you never see anybody being picked on?
Well, I mean, I see kids being picked on, but it's a back and forth picking on. They'll make fun of one kid for one thing, and he'll go back and make fun of the other kid for another thing. And that's sort of what's going on at school right now.
Okay. So I guess my next question about that would be, have you heard, or has this happened at your school recently? Have you heard of anybody, killing themselves over being bullied or over something they're dealing with? Has any student killed themselves at your school at all in this past year or two that you've been there?
Well, over the bullying, no one has ever killed themselves at our school, but there are kids that are emo, to say, quote unquote, where they do feel those suicidal thoughts and they do hurt themselves. I'm actually a friend with a couple of them. I'm not going to say their names, but it's hard for us knowing that they do that, and we try to stop them, but, we don't treat them any different for, who they actually are. We just see them as our friends and, our acquaintances that, walk by each other. But imagine like how hard it is for them, and we only see what we see. We don't know what goes on at their house or what's ever going on. It's not always just what's happening at school.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. Well, yeah. Um, when I was at the school, I never really heard about anybody committing suicide at that school. When I was there, a girl got murdered, um, but it didn't have anything to do with being bullied or nothing like that. But if anyone happens to listen and is dealing with something, I mean, or it's in school or your friends or whatever, I mean, I would just guide them to like the suicide prevention hotline or to a mental health hotline, to get them, a little bit of help. Um, so that's all, on that topic. I don't really want to get too much more into that. I think that's, enough. Um, so I'm curious, let's just get all the serious stuff out of the way first. Um, so I'm curious myself, lately what's going on in the world, people, taking a knee, during the national anthems and the Pledge of Allegiance and things like this. So I'm just curious, it doesn't have to be a real long, intricate answer, just yes or no in a way, or what your opinion is. Have you seen any of that happen in your classes? Have you seen anybody trying to be funny or trying to do whatever? And have you seen anybody take a knee during your Pledge of Allegiance? Or, are your teachers pretty strict about it? Or do your teachers not even really care? Like, have you noticed anything, or is everything just like the same as always?
Honestly, nothing has been going on. I feel that this generation is like very patriotic towards the United States. I feel like if anything, we don't try to disrespect them, but we respect the United States a lot and everything that, like everything that our country was built on, especially, and all the morals and everything. And I mean, no one's been taking a knee in class, but like it's not a strict rule where you have to stand up and say the Pledge of Allegiance. The teachers understand if you believe one thing. You know, it's all it's all basically how you feel and what your like beliefs are on the pledge.
That's good. Oh, and by the way, if you guys hear noise in the background, that's the fan we got going because it's kind of hot in here. Um, so moving forward, I mean that's a great answer, and that's good to hear that there are kids who still have who still have their heads on straight and they're not just following the crowd and taking a knee or disrespecting the flag, solely because they just see this on TV and don't even know why they think it's cool. You know what I mean? But so that's that. I'm not gonna get too much into my own opinions on that. So another thing I guess I could ask is, have you heard or do you hear any of your friends or any of your classmates? This last question was about disrespecting the flag or whatever. So do you ever hear anything about the police or like the school cop that you might have or whatever? Like, do you ever hear about kids like disrespecting them or hating them or talking trash about a police officer? Or is it just or like you don't really deal with that or hear about that?
Um, well, they don't disrespect police officers at our school. If anything, I feel like we see them as equals, and considering that they do a lot of work for people that don't appreciate what they're actually doing, and I know every time I walk by a police officer, yeah, you feel a little bit tense, and I always ask myself, why is there a tense feeling? I did nothing wrong. They're just here to protect me, you know, and I feel that like people see the bad like few in the bunch and they assume that everyone is like that, but that's not how it is. All of them, or most of them at least, are here to protect you, help you, do whatever they can to serve you, and yeah. So, but I do see a lot of kids disrespecting authority figures in school, like for example the school, like security or the teachers that walk around, because they're disciplining the kids that are, you know, like causing threats to the school in a way, because like for example at my school this thing has been going on recently where kids have been getting the milk cartons and popping them and it sounds like a gunshot, so everyone runs away screaming, and the teachers don't know what's going on. So the teachers have to suspend the kids that are doing that, and the kids that are doing that, they get all disrespectful towards those teachers, but they're just doing what they have to do to keep us safe.
So that actually just pops another idea into my head, a question into my head. So recently all these school shootings and all these attacks in the United States are kind of happening. So I'm curious about that. Recently or whatever, since you've been in the school or the school year, have you had any additional training on like an active shooter drill or on what you should do if something like this happens, or I mean, do you guys just think that it could never happen to you, or like have you had any kind of a little bit of training or anything on if this happens, like what should you do, or like what your guys' protocol is, like would you know anything about that?
Well, we do drills for, like, let's just say, like, an unknown, like, person on campus, or a mysterious figure on campus, which, I'm not gonna go into detail on that, because that can, like, expose, like, the inside of the schools, but we do have drills that protect us and are put in place for it, just to keep us safe from that, and I think that,
That's
I
good.
mean, we do feel that, it can happen, but it's a very low possibility that it probably will. I mean, most kids at the school, yeah, some feel depression, and some think of like hurting themselves, as I said before, but it's not, I don't feel like most of the kids are like angry at each other to the point where they want to go and get a gun and shoot each other.
Right. Well, that's great. That's a great answer. So I guess the only other question on that would be, do you feel afraid and when about going to school? Do you ever think about, you know, you going to school one day and possibly not coming home? Do you ever think about that? Do you ever worry about that?
I don't worry about that. I go to school, and all I look forward to, is just going to see my friends and hanging out. I just feel like school is like sort of like a safe place for me sometimes. Like, I feel that, like, if something's going on in my house, I can just go to school and, talk to my friends about, whatever's going on, or, without having to worry about my safety or whatever, because I feel that the school is, like, gonna protect me if anything does happen.
Well, that's good. That's really good. Okay, so I think that's pretty much all the serious questions I had and all the, dark, I guess, questions that I had. So now getting into something lighter. So I'm curious about the whole dating scene at school. Um, when I was there, I mean, I never dated anybody. I was always too shy to talk to anybody during middle school. Um, but I knew that some kids were dating, and usually all that really entailed was just them walking around, holding hands, kissing each other. Occasionally, I would hear about, the kids having sex or doing something, similar to that. But it wasn't very often because, you're pretty young when you're in middle school. Um, so, what's your opinion on that? Like, how does it work for you, or like, what do you have to say about that? Like, how's it going now? I mean, I guess the question would be like, when I was at that school, when I was in middle school, you didn't really hear too much about kids having sex or getting pregnant. So I'm trying to see if now, years after me, where you're at now, is that more of a common thing? Are people getting pregnant, left and right, or you hear about sex more often, or, what's going on with that?
I feel that, like, dating is a whole different, like group of things, and like it leads on to its own thing. But to start off, I'd say, compared to when you come into middle school, or when you're talking to someone, if you like someone or you feel, a strong way about them or whatever, I honestly, I used to hide it in, and one day I just said, whatever, let me let it out. And I told that person, and that ever since then I feel so much better. I got everything off my chest. It definitely takes like a large weight off your life. It's like, and whatever, if they reject you, it's okay, but at least you know that, or at least you can, move on knowing that you got a straight answer, yes or no. And after that, basically it basically makes you feel a lot better about yourself and more confidence that you can, do like better than what you actually think you can do. And
Right.
moving on to the whole like parts of dating, um, you do see kids, walking around holding hands. Sometimes you see them kissing behind the classrooms or whatever. But the school has like these rules in. It's no PDA,
Yeah.
no public displays of affection, and I don't really feel like they enforce that. But if the teachers do see you like holding hands or whatever, they'll like tell you to stop, I guess.
Right.
But moving on to like the sex topic.
Yeah, like that's like what I'm still curious about. Have you heard about that at all? I mean, maybe you guys are still too young, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know what's going on, with people your age nowadays. I mean, do you hear about any of your friends having sex or doing something like that?
Well, me and my friends know, but coming into 7th grade in middle school, I was like definitely new to like all like the sex topic and everything, but like I would freak out if I heard something about that. And but as you move on to like 8th grade, and once you see everything or like understand most things, you like you start to understand what's going on. And from my standpoint right now, like I go into the bathrooms and I see like, for example, like used condoms or something like that, or like they're on the floor, or like earlier this week some 7th grader ran up to us and was all freaking out that he found a condom on the floor and whatever. And so that kind of does show, that kids are having sex in school.
Or doing something like that?
Yeah, especially in school, you know. And, it doesn't bother me, they have their own decisions, but personally, I don't feel like that's I'm not trying to have a kid already, I'm barely, my age, so.
Which is, well, we already said your age, that you're 14, or how old are you?
Yeah.
Or you're 12, my bad. Which is really freaking young. Um, so I'm just curious, because we actually went to the same school. Me years ago, like 8 years ago or something, and you're at that school now. Um, so I'm curious now, like your side, or like if you have any questions, like do you have any question or anything for me about anything?
Was it, like, worse back then, or was it, like, better, I guess to say?
In regards to which topic, like dating, or
Yeah, in regards
just in
to,
bullying or general?
in regards to, like, the dating topic.
Um, well, when I was at that school, that middle school, like I mentioned, I never dated anybody. Occasionally you would hear about somebody was trying to have sex with somebody, but I mean, we're really young. No one really even knows what the hell they're doing. Nobody can even probably fit a condom on at that age. But you'd hear about it, I guess, here and there, that a kid was trying to, or he's trying to have sex with his girlfriend or whatever. But yeah, a lot of people did date, and you would just see them holding hands and hugging and stuff. And I think the whole thing about kids getting caught having sex during school or getting pregnant, for me, that was really big in high school. I don't think that's so much of a middle school thing, at least not during my time. But something that was big in middle school for me, and that's where it started with me and my crowd, I guess, was, sending around nude photos. I don't really know if that's going on right now for you or your, group of students there. But when I was in middle school, that's when I first got introduced to what nudes were. And girls at school were sending them around to certain guys, and then those guys were leaking them out. And that's when everything first started, for me. And then it was just becoming a more popular thing where every other week or, something, oh my gosh, like this girl's nudes got out, and now the whole school is bashing her for it. And then she ends up leaving school, or she just disappears or flunks out, and yeah.
Um, so, so basically on that, like at school right now, they don't have, like, there's no nude photos going around. I guess to say, I'm just gonna say it, um, it's not really nude photos, but girls are being more, they're exposing their bodies more, like, like wearing shorter clothes, or like, whatever, or like, especially like guys, like, they'll like sag their pants like really really low, and yeah, the dress codes at our school, they're in place, but they're only in place where the teachers at, and the teachers don't care. It's just the assistant principals, and so that's basically what's going on right now with that.
Right. So, do you wear uniform at your school or plain clothes?
You're allowed to wear like plain clothes to say, but we don't use uniforms.
Okay, so there's no uniforms. Well, hmm. I don't have too many other questions really. I want to see if you have any other questions or something that you wouldn't mind my opinion on, just in case. I mean, is there anything else you can think of that you might want to ask me about when I was in that age, or when I was going into high school, or are you curious about what you might have to expect going into high school, or are you not really worried about that kind of stuff right now?
So, like considering like school and high school, I'm pretty sure this goes on in both schools. Um, but like on how the fights are started, you know, like these days, the kids just start fights just to get attention, and I feel like that's a dumb reason because you're just gonna end up getting suspended. And at the end of the year, a lot of kids are starting fighting, like 7th graders are starting fights just to get attention to be popular in 8th grade. But they ended up getting suspended and they can never come back to the school now. So like, what was the reason why like kids back then started fights?
Back then when?
Like when you were in school.
Oh, okay. I see what I see. You kind of like yeah, you turned like your own thing into a question at the end of it. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm a little lost. Okay. Um when I was in middle school, yeah, occasionally you'd hear about a fight. It usually happened like in the main like lunch area for some reason, and they didn't last very long. I was in the middle of one of those one time. A big group of my friends were all fighting a bunch of other people, and it was kind of stupid, but I don't really know what the reason for it was. I don't know. I mean, I do recall the ones that I was in the middle of. It usually had to do with dating somebody, which kind of doesn't make too much sense, but I remember a couple times people or guys, were arguing about their girlfriends, or that this guy talked to his girlfriend or was looking at his girlfriend, or things like that, and that would spark a fight, and then they just start pushing each other and blah blah blah, and then everybody just comes and breaks it up. But that's pretty much the extent of the fighting that went on. Yeah.
Um, also to talk about this, did your teachers like? Cause I know now, the teachers they seem more lenient on like your behavior. Like they don't really care about. Like you could do whatever you want basically, and all they're gonna do is just give you like a lunch attention or a pickup or a trash pickup. Sorry. And then, like the worst you're gonna do is just go to the office. But like there was no real punishment, so um. So like asking in high school, asking about high school is like the punishments like worse in high school, or
Um, for doing what now?
for like
For fighting
disobeying or like something.
Well, I actually have a lot of stories about high school, but I can just get into one of those. Um, just like one quick example that I can give you that's kind of an interesting little story. Um, when I was in high school, I was kind of a smart, smart mouth or whatever you want to say, a smart ass, and I was very rude and defensive about everything. I always felt very attacked by everybody for whatever reason, and especially by teachers. So like one time I was in class, and I think it was like my science class or something, and I had headphones, wrapped around my ear, and the teacher told me to take them out and give them to him, and I took them out and I put them in my pocket, and I said, okay, I put them away, and then he said, but that's not what I told you to do. I told you to give me your headphones. And I said, well, they weren't even in my ear, you know, they weren't even in, they were just around my ears, you know, my bad. I'll put them away. But he was very adamant about me giving him my headphones. And I said, I'm not going to give you my headphones, dude. Like, you know, I didn't do nothing for you to take them from me. So right then and there, he just called security, and security came and picked me up, and it was my first time, you know, experiencing that, because I've never been picked up by the security at school. And they came and got me, and they took me to the office, and the teacher he wasn't really cussing me out, but he was just kind of running his mouth. And I went to the office, and I sat there waiting for the principal, or the assistant principal, or whatever. And I didn't care, you know. And meanwhile, um, the school cop actually came over and sat with me and talked to me. And at the time, I mean, I hated cops, I hated anybody of authority, and I was like, whatever, I don't care, you know. But he just came and talked to me, and he actually kind of condemned, you know, I'm not sure what the word is, but, you know, he said, like, you know, good for me that I was actually standing up for myself and what I believed was right. And I was like, wow, like, I'm surprised to hear him tell me that, you know. And he told me, he just said, you know, just like know which battles to pick, because some of them aren't worth, you know, getting suspended or, you know, expelled over. And that was it. You know, he walked away, and I saw the assistant principal that day, and they just wrote me up. I didn't get suspended. They just wrote me up. I don't remember the name of the slip they gave me, but I basically, it was like a detention, like an after-school detention or whatever. I think I had like 3 of them that I had to do because I didn't listen to the guy or whatever. So yeah, so in high school, I guess if you're screwing around in class or you're acting up or whatever, I guess one of the harsher things they do is just give you after school detention or lunch detention. I used to have that sometimes, where during lunch you actually go to a teacher's room and just sit there the whole entirety of the lunch. Like if you didn't even have a lunch, you're just sitting there in class for the whole hour or whatever it is.
Um, so, I know now that kids prefer to have lunch detention over a trash pickup, because lunch detention will get them into, you know, a room just to sit there and relax, and all they have to do is nothing, basically. You know, they're allowed to go to sleep, to say, you know, as long as the teacher doesn't find out, and the teacher's in the corner, you know, and whatever the teacher's doing. And, yeah, so, like, recently, they've added in, well, now that that I came into my new grade, they've added, like, new things to lunch detention inside the room, and that was to, like, you have to write, like, over and over and over again what you did wrong and how you're gonna correct it. So, like, is that what you did, like, or is that what they made you do when you went to lunch detention?
When I went to your school or when I went into high school?
When you went into high school.
No, in high school I never did anything like that. Even when I was in middle school, I never even had lunch detention. I think that trash pickup thing was going on. But no, I never dealt with anything like that. Like about writing down your mistake over and over, like Bart Simpson or whatever on The Simpsons. I never did anything like that at all. It was usually just, you know, your pink slip or getting suspended. And I was suspended at one point. And yeah, I did get suspended at one point. And yeah, actually, I just thought of another question. When I was in middle school, it was especially in about 8th grade, the beginning of 8th grade. That's when I picked up this habit of ditching school. I used to ditch very often at lunch. I would just go home, or I would just go to school and just leave, like after like 20 minutes. I used to ditch a lot. That's where my habit started in 8th grade. I used to start ditching school a lot, and I had a bunch of friends that would do it too. Do you know about any of that going on now, or do you have any friends that ditch, or do you ever do it?
Well, last year I knew these couple of girls, and they would show up at school, you know, but they would just say ditch, but they wouldn't ditch by leaving the school. They would ditch by going and hiding, you know, somewhere in the school.
Oh, yeah.
And hanging out, like, in the bathrooms or whatever. Or, like, they'd go and they'd hide in, like, the back corner of the field, or somewhere that, you know, it was hard for the teachers to get to them. And, that I feel like on their part, like that was kind of dumb, you know, just for like an hour and like 45 minute, you know, talk with your friend. I mean, who needs to talk to their friend that long,
Right. Yeah.
you know? And like, you know, to get like, I remember the one girl, she got like 3 days of Saturday school. Um, she had lunch attention for a week, and then also um, she had to go up and call her parents about everything she did, you know, just to talk to her friend for an hour.
So those girls got caught then.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea how they got caught?
Um, well, I mean, we do have security cameras around the school,
Really?
and they did make the dumb decision of going into the bathroom, and there's security cameras there.
Oh, so they kind of saw them, like how long they were in there for.
Yeah, and like saw that they like, you know, both separately went in and they never came out. Um, so yeah.
Okay. So do you have any other Because I know you're in eighth grade now, and I know you know high school's coming soon for you, right? So are you curious about anything else that happens in high school?
So like asking you, I don't know if you've ever been suspended, but like, what is it like to be suspended if you were?
Okay. Okay. So yeah. So about the time that I was suspended, so and I don't recommend this at all. When I first got to high school, I kind of started hanging out with, like the troublemakers. And right off the bat, they told me, hey man, you're new to the school. It's the beginning of the year. You're a freshman or whatever. This is the best time for you to ditch and just go have fun. And I was like, what do you mean? And they were like, because right now nobody knows who the hell you are, so they can't even put a face to your name. And even if you've been in a class already for a little bit, you haven't been in there long enough for the teachers to actually know who you are. So I was like, damn, they're right. So my last class of the day was always history class, and I hated that class. So every day I started leaving after lunch or whatever. So at lunch I would leave and just not go to my history class, and they'd mark me absent. But the teacher didn't really know who I was or anything. So there was no, like my friend said, face to the name. So I started ditching really often. I had I don't know, like 14 or 18, absences from that class in like the first month or whatever. And after a while, I kind of got tired of it, so I started going to class again, to that class. And one of my friends actually told the teacher that I was sick, and that's why I hadn't been showing up. So when I finally showed up, she met me, for like the second time really. And anyway, so that was fine. Everything was just dandy, I guess. And a while after, a few weeks later, I got called into the office one day, and they basically caught on, and it was the assistant principal, and she was a nasty old witch, and the worst one of the bunch that were there at that school, right? The most intimidating lady. And she calls me in, and she's like, sit down, I want to talk to you about something. And I said, what's up, what's going on? And they basically caught on that I had been ditching every day. And at the time, again, I didn't care about nothing. And she was like, so what do you have to say about it? And I'm like, nothing. Do what you gotta do. And she's like, okay, well, I need the number to your parents, because she didn't have my parents' phone number at the time. So she said, I need the number to your parents, so I can give them a call. And I said, I gave her like a fake number, and of course, the call never really went through. She didn't reach anybody. I gave her like Pizza Hut's number or some random number like that. And eventually she said, okay, well, until I talk to somebody in your family about the situation, you're not gonna leave here. And it was like at the very end of the day. So the bell had actually rang while I was sitting there, and I was like, well, you can't hold me here. I'm leaving. So I started to get up and walk out, and she said, if you leave, you're suspended. As I told you, until I can talk to somebody in your family, you're suspended. So I was like, cool, later. So I walked out, and I didn't care. So I went home, and I was suspended from school. And I didn't tell my mom or anybody about it. So for a few days, I would actually get dropped off at school in the morning, and I would pretend like I was walking into school, and then I would just turn around and walk back home. And yeah, I did that for like 3 or 4 days because I was just hanging out, you know. And eventually, I was like, man, like, you know, I can't keep on doing this. So I finally ended up telling my parents about it, and you know, yeah, I mean, they weren't very happy about it, and yeah, but that was the one and only time that I actually got suspended for like 3 or 4 days. And then after that fourth day, I went back and told the assistant principal that I talked to my mother about it, and I gave her information, and then everything was fine. But yeah, that was my suspension story.
Um, so speaking of suspensions, so going back on the topic, um, around like school threats and say school shootings, um, I wouldn't call this. It's not a school shooting, but it's related to it. I have a friend. I'm not gonna say his name. I'm just gonna call him Bob. Um, so Bob, you know, he had like he had history for like being mad at people and like he didn't really like take out his anger well or his emotions. In first grade, he picked up a chair and threw it at an old teacher, and the teacher was like 81. He ended up breaking her hip, and she had to get surgery, which was actually really sad because then she couldn't go to work anymore, so she had to quit. And I don't know where she's at now, but that's basically like to give you an example. That's basically his personality right there. So last year, some kid. Hold on. Before we get to that, in sixth grade, my friend, um, the one that I said before, he had cut himself, or he hurts himself in that way. Um, they were playing around, and he took the ball from Bob, and Bob, they both have anger issues, but Bob, he had more of like a bad anger issue, I guess to say. Um, and so he full on went out and knocked my other friend out in one punch. And so that kind of started everything between them. And I don't know if this was meant for him or not, but I'm pretty sure it was. But last year, Bob came to school with a knife, and he was going to try to stab a kid, which I'm assuming is my other friend. And the teacher caught on to what was happening and tried to get in the way. And the teacher almost got stabbed, so my friend ended up getting suspended from the school. He has been in a juvie before, and he was put in there again for a week, and then he got transferred to another school. He got kicked out of that school. I have no idea why, but my friends in that school, they were saying that he got kicked out, that he was doing something that he wasn't supposed to do. And then he got put into another school, and he got kicked out of that one as well. And this is all in 1 year, just reminding you. So currently he's in a school with one of my friends from 4th grade, and I don't know what's going on. I haven't talked to them in a while, but you know, suspension, it might seem like a little thing, but once it keeps adding on, like, I don't think he's gonna be able to, get into a good college, say, or be able to get, like, a good career that he wants. When he changes his mind later about what he wants in life, it's gonna be too late already. We all want to walk towards the goal with, like, millions of dollars and, the perfect life, but all these decisions that, that we make, even if it's a little bad decision, those little decisions, those little things add up, We may be looking towards the future and the perfect future, but we may be walking backwards to, our downfall of our life, So, it's everything, those little decisions you make, everything that happens to you, And, even suspension, it doesn't seem big, but it piles up in the end.
So I have another question that I just like thought about right now. So, I mean, I know you're still pretty young. You're like 13 or 12 or whatever. Um, how do you feel about college? What's your plan? Do you already know like what you want to be when you're older, or once you finish school? Do you have an idea of what you'd like to do, or do you not have? Are you not thinking about that right now, or like you yourself, without the school telling you or your parents telling you, you know, have you thought about your future at all, or do you have any plans or a vision that you'd like to do, or where you at with that? Because when I was your age, I didn't at all, but that was just me, you know. So where are you at?
Well, growing up in my life from childhood to now, um, I really found a passion in wanting to be a lawyer. But now that I'm getting older, I'm seeing more realistic views, and I'm seeing like all like the opportunities that I can have that will be easier for me to achieve, but worth it in the long run, you know. And speaking of college, I'm seeing like everyone thinks it's stupid to take a year off. Everyone, you get out of school and your parents want you to immediately go into college. But if you think about it, taking that year off to find out what you really want in life, that's the best decision you could ever make for yourself. Because if you go into college thinking that you want one thing, you're spending all that money, putting yourself through all that debt, and you're just gonna end up changing your course or your major, and you're gonna be trying to pay off those debts even when you get out of
Yeah,
school.
yeah,
You know,
that's good.
find out what you want first in life and achieve towards that. And you know, so I'm not gonna start off in some. Or personally, I don't want to start off in some state university or whatever. That's too expensive. I'm not gonna put myself through that. Even if I think I can afford it, I probably know I can't. And if I'm gonna be the one that's paying my bills for my college, I'd say I'm gonna start off at a community college. The tuition's lower than regular colleges or like a state college. And if I feel like I want to move up into, a state college or university, I will, but at least I'm going to be moving up with experience, not having to spend as much, time and effort and money and work and everything into, the college jumping straight into it. You got to work yourself up to, the big job, I guess you say.
Yeah, that's really good. I feel the same, and I've always felt the same. Like, you have a lot of friends that talk about that, like, they already know what they want to do since they're, in middle school, high school, freshmen or whatever. And people that, already as soon as, they get their high school diploma, they already are out the door already trying to get into college. And I just personally always thought that was kind of dumb because, I mean, you're so young and you're committing to such a debt and to such a, future when, like, you don't even really know what the hell you want for yourself. And this just rings true to me side by side with a relationship. I mean, you might be a little too young to understand this, but, I know a lot of people, even family members of mine, that the first girlfriend, the first boyfriend, or the second boyfriend or girlfriend that they have, they right away want to have a baby and get pregnant, or, I mean, hey, right away they want to get pregnant and get married, and a lot of them do it. And sure, some of them are still together, but the majority of the stories that I hear, it never works out in the end. Because you just, you didn't date other people, you didn't explore around, you didn't figure out what the hell you really want out of somebody. You just fell for the first thing that fell in your lap, and later you realize that that's not really what you want. So I feel the same goes with school. Like, you can think that, like, you want to, be a cop, or you want to be a lawyer or a doctor or this or that. But I mean, like, just because you have an idea, I mean, that doesn't really mean that that's exactly what you should do or that's what it is. And I just think you should take a little bit of time, even if it's just a few months, to really think everything out and figure out what you really want to do for your life, and, you know, invest all this time and money into, because it would really be terrible if someone, or you or whoever, does that, thinking they're going to be a lawyer or whatever, and then once you're halfway into your year, you decide, man, this sucks, I don't want to do this anymore. and now you have this huge debt over your head because you just jumped the gun on something that you didn't even really think through. But yeah, that's just my opinion on colleges and stuff, and yeah, I've barely been figuring out lately what I want to do, with my own career wise, and I'm barely doing it. And it took like 2 years, of being out of school for me to kind of reach this place. But I think that's okay. I'm still pretty young, so hopefully it'll all work out. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for now. Unless you have anything else you want to say or talk about, or
I mean, I think I'm okay. I think we covered most of the things in this session.
okay. So that's it then. You good?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then this was the first trial run of this podcast, and hopefully it's entertaining to somebody. And once it's out there, I still don't have a channel art yet, or even a channel name yet, or a podcast name yet, or even the right equipment yet. But hopefully by the time everything is said and done, and this is out there, it'll be more set and set in place. And who knows, maybe this would be a monthly thing that I do, and have different people on here every month, or myself, or a friend, or just different topics. And who knows where this might go. So I guess that'll be it for now, guys. Thanks for anybody who's listening. And yeah, just have a good one, and I guess I'll see you on the next podcast.